Going on, guys? The Inside the Boot podcast, and we have our second dual podcast. We have Logan Colavita. Last time we had Nick DeVitas. Welcome, Logan, to the stream. How you doing?
Doing good, Vin. Great to be here. We've been following the Inside the Booth podcast for a long time. Glad to finally be on it.
Yep. So I guess let's get right into it. Of course, we're doing the New York sports. So we're doing the Giants, we're doing the Jets, we're doing the Yankees, and we're doing the Rangers. And for the most part, we actually have the same liking of teams too, which is definitely good. But
Yeah.
let's get into the Jets. Just going into the season, just what were the expectations you were thinking come to now where they are today?
Honestly, Vin, like social media was framing this Jets team that they could be a real Super Bowl contender. But even I myself, as a Jet fan, know not to get too far ahead of anything. Always take everything with a little grain of salt. But I still thought that we would at least be a playoff team, a playoff contender, be playing meaningful games in December. And now we're about to get to Thanksgiving. We're on bye. We're 3-8, and the season's over. It's done.
Was
This
there
is
was there a time, like what week did you think that okay, that the season is just completely done, or did you still have some sort of kind of hope?
So I want to say after that New England loss that the season was done, it was over. But the win against Houston on Halloween, it really brought the hopes back up, especially across with lots of Jets fans. We felt a lot more hopeful about, oh, maybe we could really have a chance to run the table. We just won a game against a good Houston team. Rodgers looked great in the second half. His connection with Devontae is forming. But then when you go to Arizona and you put up 6 points, let up 31, your top five defense plays like a bottom 10 defense. It just That's when I really lost hope. I watched that game and I said, this is not a playoff team. This is not a team that's going to win 7 games. And I think that was really the nail, whatever, the hammer and the nail.
Do you think it's like with what I think we could definitely say that on paper it's probably not as bad as it looks, but like do you feel like it's mainly they got to find the right coach and the right scheme to kind of get things going? Because I mean, now we're probably not seeing Rodgers back with the team next year. So is there like a specific coach that you kind of want to see get a shot at the Jets? I know there was maybe some talk with Rex Ryan and stuff like that.
I mean, if we're talking about coaches, like they just fired their GM, I don't know what GM they're supposed to get next. But coaches, I mean, if Ben Johnson's willing to leave, the offense he's built in Detroit and come coach the Jets, I would love that. But really, I think that these issues go to the owner, Woody Johnson. I feel like that, he's been the owner of this team since 2000. He had the two AFC Championship appearances over a decade ago now, decade and a half ago. 14-year playoff drought. Look at a team like Washington. They had Dan Snyder as their owner. You know, the year he finally leaves, look at him now. You draft a new quarterback, you get a new coach, you fire the owner, and the franchise seems it's like completely brand new. And that's what I kind of hope for the Jets. But really, I feel like that, although it would be great to see Ben Johnson get a shot as head coach, maybe draft a quarterback, build one up, start the rebuild over again. It really just feels like that I won't have serious hope about this team being a good football team until Woody Johnson sells.
And who knows when he's ever gonna sell that team. Uh I guess kind of the main thing is Aaron Rodgers, of course, that I want to talk to you about
Yeah.
with the Jets. And I guess when you first acquired Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers and you made that big trade, just what were the big like? It was really hype because he was coming off two MVPs, and then first season with the Jets, he tears his Achilles in week one, and then he comes in year two. Like, did you think that he was going to be that two-time MVP coming off the Achilles injury?
Well, no, I don't think I really expect him to play, MVP form. I mean, the man, he's a Hall of Famer. He was never going to reach the seasons that he has. I think back in like 2014, his touchdown interception ratio unreal. 2020, 2021, even he was just an unreal player. The Achilles and 2022, he wasn't as great as he was those years, and the Achilles tear was definitely going to slow down his mobility. But I mean, I don't know. You see flashes of him now, but really, It's just that the arm talent's not the same, and it's not entirely what I was expecting. You expect the lack of mobility. You expect him to not be a top five QB, even a top 10 QB, but you expect him to at least be middle of the pack, and he hasn't really been playing up to those standards so far.
And with now Aaron Rodgers, he Woody Johnson wanted him to get benched after what was it, the Denver game?
The Denver game, which I was actually there for.
Yeah. So did you think that they should have benched Rodgers and give the backup the chance?
No, the backup for the Jets is Tyrod Taylor. They've got Tyrod Taylor. They got Jordan Travis, who can't even play right now because he's still coming off that brutal tear he suffered at Florida State. But I don't know what Woody Johnson was thinking. You're 4 games into your season. Yes, the Denver game didn't go great. The game before that, he plays a great game against New England, but he's just trying to overreact to so many things. He forgot the fact that it's a long season. And even when they fired Salah, I said, okay, maybe this will spark some hope. But also, you replace him with someone like Jeff Ulbrich. You're forcing your defensive coordinator to now work 2 spots, meaning the defense is going to get worse, which it did. And Salah was a well liked guy in the locker room. And now, after that, it just kind of felt like that the players lost hope for the team in general. Like it's already a hopeless franchise, and you're not doing anything to incite hope. In fact, you're taking it away from them.
Yeah, and it seems to be that the locker room talk now is that Jets are just done. Jets players are like, we don't want to play there. We're just showing up. And I guess another player in particular that probably has that mentality is Hassan Reddick, right? You trade for him. Did you like the deal? Did you think he was gonna be like this and not want to play for the New York Jets?
Um, at the time, I really liked the deal because I assumed that Douglas was making the trade with the thought in mind that somehow Reddick would be playing there day one. I thought that you know he wouldn't, because when you make a trade like that, I feel like when these holdouts happen, but they're from like players existing on your team, it's because like CD Lamb wanted his contract extension. He was a Dallas Cowboy. He wants an extension with the Cowboys, so he holds out until he can get that extension. But Reddick was acquired. I thought that Douglas would have had in mind, like, oh, if we trade for Reddick, he's going to be playing day one for this team. So it was disappointing to see him hold out. But, you think, oh, maybe Will McDonald gets better this year, which he did. He's got 8 sacks so far, much better than last year. And then you think, oh, Jermaine Johnson was great last year, out for the season in week 2. So it felt like that everything that could have gone wrong for the Jets this year has, which is surprising because last year I thought would have been the worst that I saw from a Rodgers-led Jets team, but this year has been down the gutter.
Is there any regret leaving? Is there any regret moving on with how he has a higher win percentage than Aaron Rodgers? And if you told me that, I may not believe you. Do you think it was the right move to move on from Wilson?
100%. I think I see those online that Zach Wilson a higher win percentage. That 2022 season is where he gets those wins. That season specifically, that defense was one of the best defenses I'd ever seen from a Jets team, truly. If you were watching those games, which I was, you would see that that team wasn't a Super Bowl contender because Zach Wilson was the quarterback. Mike White played in 2 games before he broke his ribs against Buffalo and was never the same. He had a 148 passer rating, something around that, against the Bears. Granted, bad team. They blew out Chicago. They were 7-4. Then they go to Minnesota the year that they won the North. They go to Minnesota and they only lose because Braxton Berrios drops a touchdown with a minute left. They lost by 5. If Berrios catches that ball, they're going to win that game. And they win a game against a very good Minnesota team. Again, with Mike White as their quarterback. I love Mike White. He is not a franchise QB. That team was special that year. And it was kind of wasted on the fact that we had Wilson. So I don't regret moving on from Wilson. People love to make the argument. I see it like, oh, Jets moved on from Darnold. He's doing good in Minnesota this year. Jets moved on from Wilson. He might do good. When you were watching those games, you could see the talent difference in Darnold and Wilson. Darnold was definitely a better talent. Even at the time, watching them play, you could see that Darnold still had the makings of being a future quarterback. It's just that his head coach was Adam Gase.
Yeah.
But Wilson, sometimes it truly felt like I was wondering how he was playing games in the NFL. And right now, he's the third string for Denver. Darnold never dropped a third string for any team. He started for Carolina. He was the backup in San Francisco. And now he was the QB2, and now he's a starter in Minnesota. He was never once listed as the third string. Wilson, his first year without the Jets, is immediately the third string. So I think that moving on from Wilson was the right move. And if you're just going to throw win percentage out there, you need to take everything into account. And that's the fact that although Rodgers has not been great this year, he's been significantly better than Zach Wilson was. That should not even be a comparison. It's just that Rodgers is playing with a bottom 10 defense and Wilson played with the top five.
So a lot of big moves were made for the Jets, right? They trade for Hassan Reddick, they trade for Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Now, my question to you now going forward, since Rodgers is probably moving on, we don't know the future with Devontae Adams. How long are we going to how long is it going to take for the Jets to really become a contender again in the AFC?
I mean, if you go based off past experience, 30 years. But in seriousness, in all seriousness, I think that Devontae's gone. There's no point for him being on a rebuilding Jets team. I don't blame him for Indy. After this season, he's going to say, I don't want to be a Jet anymore. Don't blame him 100%. Reddick's gone after this year, obviously, too. But they still have young players. There's still the hope that you could get a quarterback. If the franchise could just finally for once make correct moves, you could see a quick 2-3 year turnaround. Look at these teams, right, that have had these quick turnarounds. You got Washington, drafted a QB number 2. The team didn't get significantly better. New QB, new coach, playoff team. Houston last year, new QB, new coach. They trade up for Will Anderson, great move. Playoff team. They win the South. These quick turnarounds are possible in the NFL, but you also see teams like Carolina who draft Bryce Young, don't build around him correctly, fire their head coach in his first year, and now they're just in the gutter again. They didn't have the number one overall pick last year. They gave Chicago Caleb. And so nowadays in the NFL, you see that these teams could have quick 1-2 year turnarounds, but teams sometimes aren't able to turn around. I hope that the Jets can take 3 years and they could be a contender again, but really, most likely what it feels like is that in 2-3 years, I'll be saying, oh, maybe they could be a playoff team this year. They win 5 games, and then suddenly it's the team is terrible again. That's the most realistic option, really, looking at history.
When it comes to draft, you guys are going to have a good pick, assuming that you guys lose a lot of these rest of the games. Do you want a quarterback, or what position do you desire to just take in the draft? And is there a specific player that you want in the draft?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to want a quarterback. The quarterback is always it's the big name. It's what builds a team. I mean, it's really if the Jets can go out and get a solid quarterback in free agency, they're not going to be drafting in a position where they could get a quarterback of value. They got teams in front of them like the Giants, who are going to be drafting a quarterback after everything with Daniel Jones. The Raiders are going to be drafting a quarterback. Will Levis is playing better. Maybe the Titans won't, but you've got these quarterback needy teams in front of them, and it feels like that the Jets would just be picking scraps. Even if they're drafting at 7, they'd be picking scraps. So if they weren't to go quarterback, I'd like to see them kind of boost up their defensive line. I've seen Mason Graham thrown out there a lot, the interior defensive lineman from Michigan. I like him. I think that he'd be a good piece. I think that he'd fit a hole, but I guess I'll see more come draft time, really what I feel specifically. It's how quarterbacks are at the end of the year. I mean, I personally, I love Quinn Ewers. It's just a love I've had for him for years. If he became a Jet, I mean, that'd be incredible. I even got Quinn Ewers' Texas jersey hanging up somewhere behind me.
That's fire. All right. I guess since he brought up the Giants, I guess we should start to talk about the Giants. Another dreadful year for the New York Giants. Daniel Jones released yesterday. We found him playing safety at practice yesterday. The whole situation stunk. I mean, with Daniel Jones, it still shocks me every day that we had him for 6 years. Like, I feel like when I tell it to the average fan, they're like, really? Thought he was just coming off, and then you give him the $160 million deal, 4 years. You can get out of it 2 years, but with Daniel Jones no longer the quarterback, I don't see the Giants winning many more football games, and especially that they can't even beat, in my opinion, the worst roster in the league, the Carolina Panthers. You can't even beat them in Germany. I don't really know the future with Brian Dable with Shane Mara is like, I feel like he's like one day, yeah, they're definitely staying. And then the next day they're like, I don't know, maybe if they don't remain somewhat competitive in these last few games, Dable might be gone. Some people say in the locker room that they don't like Joe Shane. Some people say they are very upset that the Giants released Daniel Jones. And I keep telling fans that it's a business. Like, of course, Brian Burns and Darius Slayton and Dexy and all of the people that were around Daniel Jones for a while, they're of course going to be upset, but they know it's a business. But what do we feel that the future looks like for the New York Giants?
So right now, I think that things seem very bleak for the Giants. The year wasn't good. I mean, I didn't see this bad year coming. I saw them as a 6-win team coming into the season. Looks like they're going to finish around 4 probably. I do think they peel off a couple wins with Tommy DeVito. He's got a little magic. I think he wins at least a game. That typical, NFL team is done for the season. They beat a competing playoff team, whatever happens. But I feel like that this Giants team is so far removed from the one that won a playoff game 2 years ago. I feel like that the contract given to Daniel Jones, whoever his agent is, fantastic job. He had
Yes.
one great year, one winning season, and he earns $160 million.
Only threw 15 touchdowns, too.
Only threw 15 touchdowns, and the offense was really moved through their running back, who they refused to re-sign. But I think, although I do like Dable, and I hope that he gets other opportunities in the NFL because I've always liked him, seeing him as the OC in Buffalo. I do think that when you're in this position as a franchise, it is wise to move on from the head coach. Kind of give yourself the team, the franchise, give it the opportunity to start over because they're going to draft QB. That's basically guaranteed at this point. They're going to draft QB this year. And unless they really feel confident, Dable, he did a great job in 2022. They feel like he can return to that, former glory, then they can maybe ride with him still. But if most of the time when you really want to start over, you got to commit to starting over. And they have good pieces. They do. Malik Neighbors is very talented. He could be your wide receiver one for the future, for the next decade. He's a very talented wide receiver. I loved him at LSU. Like you've been talking about, they got Brian Burns, they got Dexter Lawrence, they got Kayvon Thibodeau who's coming back from injury. That's a great defensive line right there. That is a great core. I don't know how good Deontay Banks has been last year, but I know that he was solid last year.
He
You
hasn't been
know,
great this year. He hasn't been great this year. He's had a lot of
but
struggles.
the point that I want to make is with a good defensive line, you can build. You definitely can build. And I know there are a lot of holes in the Giants roster, but they're not going to be great next year unless whatever rookie comes in and slings the rock for them and does fantastic. But there's definitely a lot of hope, I think, with this Giants team in 3 years if they draft the right guy to be a true competitor. Like I said, you got Malik Neighbors already, and he would have he would have been the number one wide receiver taken in any class that didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, going into the draft, I had Malik Neighbors higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. I did. Now, I think for me with the Giants, I think of course getting the quarterback, which they have to hit on. And I know you were saying with Dable, maybe like a change, but the thing with that I've had the issue with the Giants and with John Mara is it's 2 years gone, 2 years gone, 2 years gone. GMs and head coaches gone, and that's never going to get you anywhere as a franchise. I feel like they have to just stick with Dable and Joe Shane for the next 2 seasons. That would listen, if they fail, then they fail. But I don't like this whole 2 years cycle. And honestly, unfortunately, the head coaches that they did bring in weren't great. Joe Judge was nothing but a special teams coordinator from the New England Patriots. They had Jason Garrett, Ben McAdoo, like all this junk. And when you go from Tom Coughlin to these guys, it's really a downgrade. It's just like how the Giants went from Eli to Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones is probably the most memed quarterback in the NFL. I feel like I see a meme with that guy every single day, whether it's him falling down when he played against the Eagles and had like an 80-yard run, which looked like a clear touchdown, or the terrible throws that he makes. But to this day, I still don't understand the whole 40 million a year, because if negotiations were that hard after a playoff win and he only threw 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, one of the lowest interception rates, I would have just moved on from him. If contract negotiations are that hard for a guy that realistically has not been successful at all, respectfully, agent that did a great job, like you said, we will gladly move on and we'll sign some random veteran quarterback or look to the class, look for a young QB. Whether they sucked last year and they would have gotten a Drake May or Jaden Daniels. But Tommy DeVito decided to win games. Of course, you can't tank in the NFL, but that's that. Are the Giants super far away from being a contender in the NFC?
That's an interesting thought about super far away in today's NFL. You know what I mean? Like, you see teams, yeah, I keep bringing it up. Teams like Houston and Washington 2 years ago seemed super far away. They seemed like that they would need years to build themselves back up. They're both, even though Houston's spiraling a little bit this year, they're both playoff teams. They're both most likely going to make the playoffs this year. So in the NFL, you get the right guy at coach and you get the right guy at QB, and super far away is right there. So I want to say that the Giants, I could see a world where if the Giants patch up their O line, they draft the right guy. If Dable is either the coach and he does a great job, or they fire Dable and they get, like I said before, like a Ben Johnson, then this team could see almost an instant turnaround. But again, and that's why, like, I get what you're saying, where you said you don't want to keep going through this 2 year cycle. As a fan, it gets really frustrating. But the NFL has become a quick game. If you can't get instant success, owners are looking to cut you, to chop you off. Which is again crazy how Daniel Jones stuck around for 6 years, considering that fact that he was the quarterback for the New York Giants for 6 years and he had 1 year of success. And usually they want you to get that success right away. But he found a way to hang around today's NFL, which is impressive in its own right. But I feel like I want to say that I put the Giants, if they're going to be contenders, I'm going to put them at 3 years away. But like I said, right guy, you never know. Could be a year or two, but the wrong guy, you could be looking at 5 years of mediocrity, and take it as a Jet fan, is that mediocrity is very easy to come by in the NFL. So it's very important draft that they've got coming up. It's important that they, get the right guy.
Yeah, and there's in my opinion, it's a very weak quarterback class compared to last year, in my opinion. So if there's kind of a QB that would kind of hurt the Giants, and that would be in that more like that 5 year that you don't really see success, what QB do you think would hurt the Giants the most?
There are two QBs that I've seen being thrown around in the first round. I think the Giants wouldn't take these QBs because they'd be in a higher draft position than what they're projected. But I don't like seeing Garrett Nussmeier in the first round. I don't like seeing Jalen Milroe in the first round necessarily. I have my problems with both those quarterbacks. I think, you know, with Jalen Milroe, I feel like that it's just his IQ issues. I feel like that sometimes he just makes, especially last year, he's gotten better at it this year, definitely. But last year, he just made some of these plays, and I was like, what are you doing? But then with his talent, he would make some of these plays, and I'd be like, how are you doing that? That throw against Auburn? Say what you will about, oh, it was lucky. That throw was the best throw of the college season last year. It was unbelievable. A quarterback who can make that throw should be in the league. But there are other plays. If I can remember, I think there was this fumble he had against Georgia. I think it was Georgia. That was just like, it was idiotic almost. Like he just fumbled the ball out of his hands or something like that. And sometimes I'm just thinking to myself, like, Milroe, what are you doing? He got benched last year. Saban benched him halfway through the year last year, not because of a talent issue, but because of an IQ issue. Then he loses Saban for his last year, so it's not the same Bama, you know. With Nussmeier, I don't know. I could change my opinion on Nussmeier. I haven't seen a lot of him playing, if I'm being honest. At the end of the college season, I do like to go. I do like to go back through, different QB plays. I try to find, their tape throughout the year, look at it, see how I feel like if they're making their reads correctly, how I like their pocket presence, things like that. Generally, Nussmeier, from what I've seen so far, I just feel like that sometimes he lacks an ability to go through his reads, but I've also seen these highlights where goes through his progressions really nice, and when he's able to kind of stand tall in the pocket, he does like a great job in these games. But sometimes I feel like that he just, I don't know, he's so quick to go to that first read, which is a problem for many young quarterbacks, not just him. So I have to look at Nussmeier more. He doesn't have the same, level of, oh, Shadur's been playing for years, oh, Quinn's been playing for years. You know what I mean? But I guess maybe at the end of the season, if I look at Nussmeier playing, I could say, hey, I think this kid's got what it takes. But right now, I'm not that high on him. I think that those are two QBs that I would avoid in the draft.
I think it's really going to come down to one of Shadur, Cam Ward, and Jalen Miller for the Giants. I don't think they're going to look at Quinn Ewers or they're going to look at Niersmeyer or any of those other
Yeah.
QBs. Of course, we saw the complete fall off of Carson Beck out of Georgia. That was nuts. But like you said earlier, I think if the Giants, honestly, I think probably the two most ready QBs is Cam Ward and Shadur. I think if they get one of them, you could see quite a turnaround. I think if you get more of a Milrow, it's more of, that project. It's kind of,
Exactly.
and we've seen what the project with Anthony Richardson, it didn't really kind of work out. So maybe that's another situation with Jalen Milrow. Of course, Dable does have some familiarity with Bama and Saban, so maybe they like Jalen Milrow because Dable knows kind of what Bama runs and stuff like that. But yeah, it comes down to the quarterback, and that's the end of the day. I think it's the most important when it comes to the offense. When it comes to head coaches, I really like. I know the Ben Johnson hype and all, but for me, like, why would he want to leave the Detroit Lions with what
Yeah.
he's built with Detroit? And I think for Dan Campbell, not like he's gonna like say like, yo, you gotta stay here, but like I feel like there's just too much love between Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. And we've also seen like some offensive coordinators might just not be a head coach. And maybe you could say that about Brian Dable, because we know he was a good OC in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Now, granted, he had a game plan around Daniel Jones and all that. So there's that. So now everyone takes a question like, okay, if Dable gets Shadur or he gets Cam Ward, maybe Jalen Miller, and he still stinks, then maybe we were right all along that he was just a offensive coordinator, because being a head coach is not easy. And to be honest, I don't really know what Mike Kafka does, the offensive coordinator for the Giants. I think it's more of Brian Dable doing everything, and Mike Kafka is just there, like he's just in the press box, and the camera will go on him once in a while. But I don't think he's really doing much. I think it's more of Brian Dable taking that leadership with the offense, and the 2-point conversions have been awful. And everything about this offense has been awful. I mean, Tyron Tracy's been really fun. I like the pick. I like the Theo Johnson pick. I like the entire draft class from Joe Shane. And I think that's something that he needs to build on. He can't have one of those classes like, okay, good class here. And then next class immediately, he's taken, maybe Jalen Miller or maybe someone like that, because it's only going to take the process longer and longer and longer. If there's one thing that I like about Joe Shane is that he doesn't make bad trades. At least he hasn't made a bad trade yet. Like originally, Brian Burns was projected to go for 2 firsts, and he gets him for a second and a 5th round pick. But I think just for Joe Shane and the entire Giants, you got to hit on multiple classes. I mean, you saw even with the Detroit Lions, like when they started just hitting on draft pick after draft pick, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then they signed Dave Montgomery, and they have the best running back duo. They draft Laporta, they get Amon Ra, like they get these players, and then they have that elite offensive line. Now the Giants' offensive line has improved from last year. They allowed 85 sacks last year. JMS has been better. The injuries to Andrew Thomas are never good, because now left tackle is just so suspect. And now and with Evan Neal, he finally got to play against Carolina. He had a good game, but then it's like how much of that indicates he takes on the Buccaneers this Sunday, who have a pretty good defense. So we'll see how he does there. But getting into our other discussion with the Giants, of course, Saquon Barkley. He's gone. He's been the big talk. Anytime Saquon makes a big move, everyone just pivots to the Giants. How did you release? How do you let him go? How do you do this? I just want your thoughts, and then I'll give you my thoughts of the Saquon departure.
See, I feel like with Saquon that I've always been like the type of guy that's like, oh, running backs shouldn't be too important for your offense. The game's becoming more of a passing style. Don't use too high draft capital on running backs unless they're entirely special, or don't spend big money on a running back. But the thing with Saquon, what made the thought different, was that when they made the playoffs, when they were a playoff team, a team that could win a playoff game, they ran that offense through him. But they rewarded Daniel Jones with that contract. They needed to realize that Saquon, for that team specifically, was worth that money. He was the focal point of that offense. He's what made that offense a playoff offense. And I feel like that not giving him the contract was, even at the time, not a great decision. Also because, and I know that you can't really know this, but you let him go to Philly. You let him go right to the Eagles. You got to play him twice a year now. You can't avoid that. And he's doing, and behind that offensive line, of course he was going to do amazing. It was like a match made in heaven. The Philly offensive line and Saquon Barkley. He hasn't really run behind a strong offensive line for almost his entire career in New York. He was mostly, working as a pass catching back, just giving him the ball in free space and letting him work to try to miss defenders. But now they're saying, like, we'll set you up for blocking. Look at the fantastic year he's having. You know, I feel like with him and also with Derrick Henry in general, you see that these elite running backs can still be worth that money. You know what I mean?
Bit of a network problem.
Ah,
We're back. Yeah, we're back. I think.
yeah, we're back.
All right. Yeah, you can keep going. You cut out when you were talking about Derrick Henry.
Okay, so all I said was like you also see with Derrick Henry that these elite level running backs can be worth the money, and I expect in years when his rookie contract is up for like Bijan to be worth that money. That's a special back right there that Atlanta can't let walk, because although Kirk is passing so much, having Bijan in that backfield is such a great benefit to make them uh, a multi level offense. So I think that we're going to start to see that teams are going to be more willing to pay their running backs, especially because, unfortunate for the Giants, it was worst case scenario for them. Don't play Saquon. Go to the team that's won the NFC. So
Yeah,
it's terrible.
yeah. I think with the whole Eagles and Saquon, the problem that I think for Saquon is that he knew deep down for his legacy that it wouldn't be able to flow with the New York Giants. He knows, okay, made a playoff appearance in 2022 for the first time. But for me, for Saquon purposes, but where do I go from here? If I'm going to stay with the Giants, are they really going to be that team? But if I go to Philly, I know what I'm getting in Philly. I know I'm getting an elite offensive line, an elite team that can, be in hopes for the Super Bowl. And he probably knew that the Giants, as much as he loved Daniel Jones, that they're just not going to be that big powerhouse team. And for Saquon, it was the right move. For me, I thought he was going to either Houston or Philly, and of course he picks Philly. But and the Texans end up getting Joe Mixon, which was a good move as well. So I just think for my sake, for Saquon, I'm not necessarily as mad as other Giants fans. Like Giants fans are like, fuck Saquon, all of this. I'm not necessarily like that because I knew deep down that this Giants team at the time, if they do give $15 million for a running back, where do they go with the rest? And now I know the Daniel Jones contract, which they ended up pivoting to since they couldn't re-sign Saquon. It's obviously, why do you pay Daniel Jones over Saquon? But I think just for, like I said, like with Saquon, deep down, the whole Giant for life was okay, I'm a Giant. I did my part. The organization for a playoff type team right now is not there. I know what I'm getting in Philly, and I'm gonna sign in Philly. And that's what he did, and I'm not shocked at all. I mean, I drafted him in fantasy football because I knew what he was gonna be. He was gonna be a menace on the field. When you're only averaging 3.8 yards a carry with the Giants all the time, and Daniel Jones is your quarterback who relied on Saquon. Like if you look at Daniel Jones's stats with and without Saquon, it's crazy. The difference is so crazy. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm happy for Saquon because he is a Philadelphia Eagle, and now
Right.
I have to play against him. And when he did play against us, he was going to break his like career rushing yards in a game, but he decided, okay, I'm not gonna embarrass the Giants too much, but yeah, it's always frustrating because everyone just looks back at the Giants and just looks at how bad of a move it was. But for me, I never thought he was gonna resign because not only just because of money, just for his legacy. If he signs a 4-year deal with the Giants and there's somehow there's locker room issues with Dable and all that stuff, like it would have been a whole mess.
And I agree with that. With what you said about Saquon's legacy, especially, it's better for him in
Yeah,
Philly. Yeah.
I mean he has a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. I mean, despite the Lions, I don't really know another team that comes to mind really. Maybe the Vikings, but like the 49ers are hurt. No Brock Purdy this week. CMC is just getting back into the rhythm of things. Like I really feel like it's just either the Lions or the Eagles that are going to be in the Super Bowl. Like the Vikings are good and all, but does Sam Darnold have what it takes to beat a team like Philly or to honestly beat a team like Detroit when it comes to playoffs?
I mean, I think that this is the Lions conference the entire way. I think definitely. I even think that the gap between Detroit and Philly right now is pretty big. It really, they lost to Tampa in week 2. That feels like forever ago. Goff throws 5 interceptions. He has been so good with not turning the ball over. He has one game where he throws 5 interceptions for some reason. Just throws the ball around, turns over 5 times, and they still win. They still win the game. This Lions team does feel unbeatable, and I feel like that you're right in saying that it feels like it's Detroit and Philly. Maybe you could throw Washington in there. Maybe in the playoffs, Washington and Philly match up, and Washington can win because that's that division matchup, that team you're prepared to play. But you can also say Philly's more experienced. They've got a more talented roster. Really, they should win that game. So it really does feel like that. Besides Detroit, Philly is the biggest contender in that conference. And I mean, I feel like as a Jet fan, I'm not a Giant fan. Great for Saquon. He's such a talented player, and I feel like that he really does deserve a shot at a ring.
Yeah, the talent, everything for Saquon is there. The talent, the explosiveness. I mean, the backwards jump, whatever that was. Like, I mean, you can't teach that. You're not going to see that out
No,
of really
you
any
never
other
see a player
running back.
do that.
Yeah, there's so in a small way, I am happy that Saquon is succeeding, and I know Giants fans are going to kill me for saying that, but you got to look at it. The Giants are just not there right now for contending, like we explained earlier. They need a QB. Is Dable the guy? Like, there's so many questions with the Giants and New York media too. I mean, not like Philly's any better when it comes to media, but
Right.
but but let's talk some Rangers. For my channel, I haven't really talked enough Rangers at all, and I don't remember actually the last time I talked about them. But they're 12-5-1. Vibes are, I'd say, more in the middle right now. I think for the Rangers,
I agree.
I think some fans are really questioning the roster. I think so. I don't think it's a coaching issue. I think just sometimes like the Metropolitan is starting to become like that just team that it's tough to beat. Like we're seeing Washington, despite Ovi's injury, who was on an absolute tear. They're a
Right.
really solid team. Carolina and Jersey are always good. But then the other teams like Philly are like, okay, they're okay. They have some pieces. The Islanders can't find a way to save a game in the third period. And then Columbus and Pittsburgh, I just don't think they're very good. I think with Pittsburgh, their window is honestly completely closed. Unlike Ovechkin's team, that I think they still have somewhat of a window. I think their offseason was very, very good. But do you think the Rangers are still an elite threat to the Metro? Do you think they're probably not going to be that team that wins the President's Trophy last year and kind of run away with the Metro? I know it's only not even 20 games in, but I just want to hear the vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't watch the Rangers nearly as much as I watch the Jets, but from at least what I've seen, what I felt, what I've seen like online, the vibes, like you said, are kind of in the middle across most Ranger fans. We're 18 games in right now, so almost a quarter of the way through a season. I feel like that this isn't going to be the President's Trophy winner. We changed the lines. I don't know if we changed them back yet.
We have,
Um,
we have.
we have. That's probably better. How long ago did we change those lines back?
I think it was 2 or 3 games ago. It's so weird with hockey because like they don't play every day, you know.
Right.
Like it's not like baseball, which we'll get into the Yankees later, but
Yeah.
it's kind of hard, and I think changing the lines weren't very beneficial, to be honest. The line with Lafreniere, Panarin, and Zibanejad never worked. Zibanejad
No.
and Panarin can never, they just can never click. And then you
No.
add Lafreniere, who's a very solid playmaker, and you still can't get Zibanejad to score goals. For me, I'm very 50-50 with Mika Zibanejad. I don't know about you, but I don't see that goal scoring touch as much.
With me and with Mika, and I guess that first line in general, you look at the Rangers, especially last year. That second line, the Panarin, Trocheck, and Loff line, fantastic. Loff got much better last year with Panarin with Panarin on his line. Trocheck had a good year last year. He was an All Star. Should he have been? Maybe not, but still an All Star. The third line this year, I know was playing at a really hot start. I think they've kind of not been as great, but Cooley has been pretty good this year. It's really just that first line needs to improve, and I feel like that you can relate it back to Mika and his inability to score in 5-on-5. Really, that's what killed this team in the playoffs. We saw against Florida. Our first line could not do anything. Our second line could very barely produce because Florida's the defense on their wing is just incredible last year. But because that first line just really can't produce 5-on-5, it just it kills the team. And you see like and now in the regular season you think, oh, it's fine, we still win games, we're still good, we're still a playoff team. And then we get the Eastern Conference Finals, and that's our undoing, really. That was the reason we lost the series was our inability, especially in the first line, to play 5-on-5. And I just feel like I can put most of that with Mika, maybe Kreider a little bit, but Kreider has his moments. Game 6 against Carolina, he scored the hat trick. Kind of won us that game. It was great. Almost let up that 3-0 lead, but
Yeah, the thing that I guess you can kind of defend Mika Zibanejad this year is that Chris Kreider does not have a single assist.
that's also
So
true.
that's a problem. So if I know, of course, Kreider's a primarily goal scorer. Like you're gonna get 20 to 30 goals out of him every year. And now with Riley Smith, the addition there, for me when I saw the trade, I'm like, all right, this is kind of just a fill-in. He's not like some elite right winger like a Jake Gensel that you could have maybe snagged or something like that. So I think it's just a veteran team that I think, in all honesty, is way too reliant on the young guns. And I do kind of disagree with you when you said the third line has kind of cooled down. I don't think they've cooled down at all. I mean, Will Cooley is currently tied for third with Alexi Lafreniere in points. So, and and I think just something with that line with Kako improving too. I think Ranger fans are finally starting to realize that maybe Kako is starting to finally hit that leap that we saw with Alexi Lafreniere, where he just suddenly took off. Now, granted, Capo Kako doesn't get top power play minutes or any of that, but honestly, neither does Alexi Lafreniere, and I think that's what the Rangers need to finally do is take Mika Zibanejad off that top line and put Lafreniere. It doesn't hurt to just stack a line. Like we've seen, like the Edmonton Oilers, they don't split up Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid because they're two of their best players. There's a reason why they consistently have a 20, a top 5 power play in the league every single year. Same with like the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you're splitting up like Marner and Matthews and Nylander, what is really getting done? And now I think there was when the Rangers had like Patrick Kane and Tarasenko. Yeah, sure, you can have two balanced units, but I don't think the Rangers to do that. I'm still waiting to this day to get the notification that Alexis Lafreniere is getting top power play minutes over Mika Zibanejad because I think we're just looking at it like Lafreniere has been one of their better players. He's scoring more.
Yeah.
He's creating way more offense than Mika. And I'm not saying like I'm not a Mika hater. I'm not trying to say that, but when you get paid $8.5 million per year to be that number one center, which I don't even think he is on this team, I think it's Vinny Trocheck
It
who
is.
gets paid 5.6. You're gonna have to receive some criticism. I think that entire line should receive criticism because Kreider doesn't have an assist. Riley Smith is good, but like he's nothing like top tier right winger. But yeah, I need to see more, and it shouldn't just be the third line and the second line. Fourth line has their moments, but nothing really. And I
Yeah.
guess getting into a question with the fourth line is: Do you think it's good that Matt Rempe is not in the lineup, or do you think he should be an AHL goon?
I mean, Rempe, Rempe's a special case because like as a true like hockey talent, I don't think that he should be playing on this team. If you take him just for like his ability to play hockey, I don't think you should take him. He should be on the team. But sometimes you do need a player like Rempe. The team loves him. They love the goon he is. If you ever go to a Ranger game, I've been in the garden a couple times when the moment Rempe touches the ice, the entire garden starts chanting his name. The crowd loves him. The fans love him. He's one of the most loved players on this team, and he barely even plays minutes. So sometimes I would say, put Rempe in the AHL because sometimes we just need talent, especially with a lacking first line. Sometimes you even need that bottom line to boost you a little bit. But when that first line is playing good, having a player like Rempe to keep the morale high, to keep the team going, you see in other sports, like I mean, at least I see in other sports I follow a little more heavily, like baseball. You get a player that's able just to keep the vibes on the team high, keep the team energetic, keep them going. It does wonders for a team. That's the important spot on the team sometimes. The guy who's gonna keep the team, moving, keep them fired up, and Rempe does that. But when your first line's lacking, and your second line's kind of your first line, and your third line's your second line, and you need that fourth line to boost in some early minutes, you can't really have Rempe there because it's not like he's gonna really contribute to goal scoring.
Yeah, and I think it's smart to not have him in the lineup because when you're playing a really good team, whether it's in the Metro, like you're playing the Devils, or you're playing Carolina, or even Washington, or you're playing even a good team in up in Canada, like Edmonton or Montreal, not Montreal, the Maple Leafs. I don't think I can have a 6-7 goon play 3 minutes a night. I mean, much rather have a guy like Johnny Brzezinski who's versatile. He can play the power play. He could take faceoffs for you. He could play the wing. I'd much rather that.
One hundred
And pl-
percent.
and plus, you already have a massive dude in Adam Edstrom, a rookie, who's already 6'7". So I mean, yeah, listen, it's fun as hell. It's fun as hell to have 2 6'7" guys on one line, and then they're throwing punches. So that's cool and all, but this isn't a video game. Like if this is a video
Right.
game, it'd be hilarious to have Matt Rempe 6'8", Adam Edstrom the 6'7", just mauling people, putting people into the boards. That's great and all. But I like the fourth line right now with VZ, Carrick, and Edstrom. I think
Yeah.
that's been the main thing. But has there been any shocking players that have had bad starts? Besides, yeah, yeah. Has there been any players that you've been shocked with their performances, bad or good?
Honestly, been like I haven't been keeping track with the Rangers too much, but I don't know of any shockingly like bad starts. I loved I know that it's not the same rate as when he was scoring like a goal almost every game, every other game, but I think that Loff has been amazing to start this year. I was high on Loff going into the year because did he reach 30 goals last year? Or did he just get under 30 goals? It was around the 30 goal mark
I think it
somewhere,
was
but.
28. Pretty sure it's 28. Like it was right there.
Right. But like I thought, last year he finally broke through a little bit with, like I said, like Panarin passing to him. I was waiting for, maybe like a Loft All-Star appearance this year. And to start the year, I feel like that he really has been this like great goal scorer. He has some highlight plays already. But I really I again that second line for me somehow it stayed, one of the best lines in hockey. The line that really made us the President's Trophy winner, you know. But I just feel like I've been saying, that first line in general, it's just whenever I think about them, I just think like just like last. It's and you know what the thing that makes it frustrating too? It's just like last year. It's can that first line play 5-on-5 hockey? Can that first line play 5-on-5 hockey? Last year, the answer eventually became no. This year, it feels like that answer is going to eventually become no. At the deadline, we're going to have the same conversation last year. What right winger are we going to trade for? Last year, I was hoping that we could somehow grab a right winger like Buchnevich, bring him. You know, I thought that he would have been, a great piece. We got Rosovic instead. He was fine, I guess, but I feel like that for the window we have, we need to commit to it. Don't be afraid to move draft capital, especially now with this Igor extension going on. Although I think, we're going to retain him, just like, but you can't take anything for granted in sports. You can't say, oh, we're definitely going to have Igor back no matter what, even though I truly believe we will have Igor back. You still can't take it for granted that, oh, you know what, we'll have him next year anyway. Like, no, if your team is good enough to win, you have to commit to that team winning. And I feel like that they're kind of, like, oh, we still, want the draft pick, which, we'll see how good that draft pick came out. What was he, a defenseman from Michigan? I kind of forget his name now. That draft
From
pick,
last year's draft?
yeah.
Oh yeah, that was EJ Emery. He was a good solid pick. But also the guy I believe the year before, Gabriel Perreault from Boston College, is currently destroying
Well,
college.
Perot's different. Perot's fantastic.
Yeah.
I hear what he's doing.
He
I think he's going to be fantastic.
him and Ryan Leonard for Boston College are destroying. But yeah, it's a good talking point about Chris Drury and where this team is going, because respectfully, Artemi Panarin isn't getting any younger. There's only going to be so much that he can produce. Chris Kreider is in his 30s. Mika Zibanejad's in his 30s. Like the core is still there. Now, I don't consider Jacob Trouba the core. I think he's gone after this year, and the whole offseason with Jacob Trouba is chaotic. But I think there has to be a time where the Rangers just have to go for it. And I think last year could have been that year. I really thought
I thought it
I
was going to
really
be.
thought I really thought they really should have just went all in for Jake Gensel. That would have been an amazing piece. Now listen, maybe they don't retain him and he ends up going to like Tampa, or he goes and actually signs to Carolina, something like that. I thought the Jack Roslovic move was not very good. I thought with Jack Roslovic skates around too much. Now, granted, he's having a good year in Carolina, and I think it's because he fits there more and fits their fast play style. But with us, we already have enough players that can, roam around the ice like Lafreniere, Panarin, and young guys like that. And I thought last year, you win the President's Trophy. Igor has a great year. Panarin has a great year. Another great year from Kreider and a bunch of other guys. I don't really know the direction that they're. I know they're trying to stay with the draft picks and trying to stay super competitive, but we've seen like Florida when they went all in. That team was unstoppable. Despite the 5-on-5 struggles, Panarin not showing up, Mika not showing up. Kreider, for the most part, showed up in that series, but like nothing too special. Had a goal in like game 6, something like that. That team went all in. And that's a GM that has the balls to send a few first round picks for a top defenseman or sends a few top picks for a great right winger because that's what this team needs. You're not going to win a Stanley Cup with Riley Smith as your top guy. You
No.
need more and more and more talent. And listen, we know that Gabriel Perel is off limits, and I know that's going to be the top guy that teams are going to ask for. And I'm not saying they should trade him at all. I think he's definitely one of those untouchable prospects.
Yeah.
I think that's with Brennan Othman too, but like I feel like most of these guys should kind of be on the table, except for Othman and Perot, and maybe I'm probably missing a prospect too. But there's only a matter of time where there's not many opportunities that you can say, all right, let's go all in and win a Stanley Cup.
Right? Like I agree with you 100%. You know, I mean, I do love Perot. I'm always on the side of when your team's good, you take that opportunity. Maybe it comes from being a Jet fan and it feels like your team's never good, but I always feel like that if your team is ready to compete, ready to be a true competitor, why not go all in? When are you going to get this opportunity gifted to you again? Like last year, you're the President's Trophy winner. Trade for an elite right winger, trade for a Gensel, trade for a Butte, whatever you can. If you can make these trades, don't be afraid to move your first rounder. I get, like, you don't want to trade Perot because he's supposed to be fantastic. Offense supposed to be a very good piece in the future, too. I get that. Like, you want to keep these top prospects. But, like, although it might be a hard decision, I would keep Perot as untouchable. Often I'd be a little more, if it's going to be an elite player that you feel like is truly going to put you as the best team in the league, you have to consider it at least. You know what I mean? Maybe not guaranteed 100%, but like I feel like that. I'm sorry, I got a Twitter notification about college football. I was looking at it. Will Howard's 14 for 14 today against Indiana.
Oh,
But
oh damn.
yeah. But anyway, what I was saying is like you got to be ready. So few times in your franchise you get an opportunity to say we are an elite team to win the Stanley Cup. You got to commit to that, you know?
It seems like the time that they went all in was when they traded for Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. And respectfully, Patrick Kane was not healthy. He was dealing with a
No.
hip injury. When I went to a Tampa Bay Ranger game, Patrick Kane did not even play because he was injured, and I was a little upset about that. But I even think that last year you could have reunited with Vladimir Tarasenko. I still think he's a guy that could still shoot the puck really well and skate really well. Now they're in Detroit, and that Detroit team is honestly kind of a mess in my opinion. I don't think they're very
Um,
good. Just like Nashville. Nashville is a team that it felt like they went in full franchise mode. They got
right.
Vladimir, not Vladimir. They got Steven Stamkos. They got Jonathan Marchessault, and they got a few other guys. And I think that's one thing that I do like about Chris Drury is that he knows what players to get, and he doesn't overspend for older players. Now, I wanted
Right.
Jonathan Marchessault because he comes off a 40-goal year. Granted, he's 32 years of age, I think. So, I mean, if you give him a 4-year deal, he's going to his 36th year. But
Yeah.
like we said, I mean, a right winger is probably the biggest issue, I think, in just overall 5-on-5 scoring.
Yeah.
Uh, and I guess for our final thing for the Rangers is, I mean, we've kind of talked about it, was what is kind of the confidence level that they can finally come out of the East and win the Eastern Conference?
This year it feels I'm back and forth. I think Carolina's always a great team, but Carolina has that question too for their own team. Can we come out of the East this year? That's always been a problem for them. Can they even win an Eastern Conference Finals game? That's classic Carolina. The Devils. Although the Devils are ahead of us right now in the standings, they still got what 3, 4 games to handle us. I still think that we're better than New Jersey. Washington, though, is a scary team this year. They're going to get worse because of the Ovechkin injury, but he's still Alex Ovechkin, and he's showing that he's still phenomenal at the sport. And I feel like the team itself has been strong. I feel like that, and this is why I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't go all in last year. I feel like that we're not in the elite of the East this year. I mean, what helps is that, Boston has just been
They just
terrible.
fired the head coach
They
too.
fired their head coach. But like, I feel like that it's a little harder. I feel like imagining us coming out of the East is a little harder than last year. And granted, we're 19 games into the season, so everything is still a little muddy. It's kind of hard to make it clear like who are the true contenders, who are just kind temporarily good. When you get to the halfway point, it starts to clear up a little bit more. But right now, it just feels a little more muddy. And again, it's another reason why I wish that last year we went all in the trade deadline, so that because that felt like it really felt like last year that the only threats in the East were us, Carolina, Boston, and Florida, and we didn't take advantage of being one of the top two teams of those four teams.
Yeah, 100%. And now I think it's time to talk some Yankees. Of course, tough World Series loss. Game 5 is probably the one game that I will forever remember, unfortunately, with how everything escalated.
Ugh, just disgusting.
There's a few other questions I want to ask, but before, I want to ask if you think it's smart to be bringing back Aaron Boone.
You know, I'm always under the premise with a manager or coach, you shouldn't fire them unless you think you could get someone better. And I feel like with Boone, it's such a love-hate relationship, but that World Series, game 1, why are you throwing in Nestor?
Yeah,
Why are we throwing in Nestor? I just I feel like who was it? Tim Hill. Yeah, it was Tim Hill.
yeah,
Tim Hill. You want the lefty on lefty matchup. I get that. Okay, you don't want to face Mookie. All right, you choose to face Freddie Freeman because he's hurt. But even in the moment, I was like, why are we bringing in Nestor? Nestor hadn't pitched in a month or over a month at that point, and I
38
get it.
days to be exact.
38 days to be exact. You had the number. You had the number ready in your mind, Vin.
Yep.
That's how brutal it was. And it doesn't help that in the rest of that series, I think Tim Hill faced Freddie Freeman 3 or 4 times and went 0 for 3 or 0 for 4.
Yeah,
So it just, I don't know, a move like that, other questionable moves really with the bullpen, and he just, the attachment to Clay Holmes that he had for so long,
yeah.
you
That
know,
that's a big difference because if you even split his blown saves, right? He blew 13 saves, which was one of the highest in Yankees history.
yeah,
And you cut that in half and you win 6 more games. One, you obviously win the division. But not
right.
only that, no team in the MLB won 100 games. No team. And you would think that the Dodgers coming in, dude, they're going to win 115 games. They're going to be
Yeah.
unstoppable. They don't even win 100. They don't even win 100 games. So that alone, listen, great to see that Luke Weaver steps up and be dominant, right?
Oh, phenomenal. Love Luke Weaver.
But the game 1 when I was watching with a few buddies from the team, and when I saw them I first saw the notification that Nestor Cortez is warming up, and I'm like, okay, Tim Hill is ready. They're just doing this to be precautionary. But the thing is that I don't understand with throwing Nestor in, Mookie Betts was 0 for 5 in his career against Nestor Cortez, but we'll let Nestor Cortez face Otani. So the reasoning for me doesn't make much sense. And I mean, to throw a first pitch fastball to Freddie Freeman, that is just
Never,
asking
never,
for that thing to get nuked. And once it was hit, you knew it was gone. You
never.
knew it was gone. And for me, quite honestly, when we lost game 1, I kind of was like, I don't even know if this team's going to come back and win the series because it seems like the Dodgers didn't play better than you. They just fed off your mistakes. Because you look at the statistics, I want to say it was neck and neck. I think they scored 25 runs to your 24.
Yeah,
You were actually a better team hitting and runners in scoring position than them. I think you were
yeah.
201 and they were like 180, something like that. So
Otani played horrendous.
yeah,
Like worse
Otani
than
didn't
Judge.
play good. Judge didn't show up, but like honestly, like that's kind of the expectation. I'm not expecting Judge to just all of a sudden go into the World Series, bat 350, 6 home runs, something crazy, because that's just not who he is. And for me, like, listen, I've played baseball for a decent amount. You've played baseball for a decent amount. For me, like, I don't understand. Like, does he change his swing or like confidence issue? Like, what do you think it is with him?
I mean, it kind of feels like that. I think it was a mix this year. I will say I'll be lighter on Judge than I have been in the past about his playoff performances. This year it was a mix, I think, of confidence early on, but later in the postseason he started hitting balls harder. They were just outs. You forget because of the disgusting drop in Game 5. He was actually hitting very well in Game 4 and Game 5. He was still, and like I said, he played better than Otani that series, and he was turning a corner. But all you're going to remember is that Game 5 drop because he doesn't look the ball into the glove, which is terrible. I mean, he's still Aaron Judge. He's still, in my opinion, the best hitter on the planet. His regular season showed that. His 2022 season showed that. He's the best. He's the best hitter on the planet right now. But sometimes when you get to the playoffs, like for example, you take a man like Derek Jeter. Now, though I'm a Yankee fan, and it pains me to say this, Derek Jeter is one of the most overrated players in history. It's just the fact that once that man got to October, he thrived like no other. That's what made his legacy. Do I think he should have gotten more first ballot votes than Ken Griffey? Absolutely not. But when that man reached October, he was a different animal. He was the captain. He makes the flip play against the A's. He comes up clutch in every moment. And that's what made him a Yankees legend. And Judge just isn't like that. It's not that he doesn't have the mentality to be like that. I just think it's maybe the confidence issues at that point, or it's one of those things that you can't really teach. You're just kind of born with. And Jeter was born with it, and Judge entirely wasn't.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating, especially when the Yankees had a chance to kind of run away with the game, and then Judge is up, and you're like, please, just one swing, Judgy, just one time, and then he gets K'd up, or yeah, I mean, for the most part, besides Game 4 and Game 5, I don't think he really put the ball in play much. I think he may have had a hit, like one hit in
Yeah, no.
Game
The
one or
first three
two.
games of the World Series, when I was talking about the unluckiness, I was mostly referring to the ALCS.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Game one through three of the
ALCS
World
was
Series,
interesting.
he was just swinging and missing. That's not what I was talking about.
Yeah, and another thing for the Yankees, and I know everyone does say that they did have an easy route to the World Series because they just beat up on the AL Central. For something that it's kind of like a what if they ran into honestly the Baltimore Orioles or the Houston Astros? I mean, I think with how they played against the AL East this year, they were not good. They were actually terrible. But then they
Yeah.
just fed off against the AL Central. And when you take on the Royals, who are an up and coming team, and then the Guardians, who you notoriously have very good success against, I wasn't like too worried. And I mean, granted, when what was it, David Fry or someone who hit the walk off home run,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, okay, they're just gonna all of a sudden take this series from us. No, I thought Yankees were far more talented. Juan Soto had a great series, and I guess since we're talking about Juan Soto, do you think he's come back to the Yankees, or do you think he's honestly going to the Mets? For
I don't
me,
know. The
I
longer
think
it
he's still gonna be a Yankee.
the longer it takes, the longer I get a little more nervous, and the more in my mind I start to think, could he really be a Met? I mean, I feel like there's been such the thing with this whole Soto ordeal is that I feel like whatever claims you make, it's purely just based off kind of the feel alone. These meetings are happening and everyone just says, "Oh, the meetings are good," but no details are given. His meeting with Boston, no details were given. Hal said that, "Oh, the meeting was good." Steve Cohen said that the meeting was good. Everyone's just saying that these meetings are good, and that's what I kind of feel like. Like anyone could just say, "Oh, he's going to the Mets. He's going to the Yankees." Someone might say like, "Oh, he's going to the Red Sox," but you're kind of throwing, darts at a dartboard a little bit. What my hope is that he was Yankee this past year. He formed the bond with Judge. He wants to be a Yankee. We're a historic franchise, and we can match as much money as Steve Cohen's willing to throw at him. Hal should be able to match that. There's no excuse. There's no excuse if you're the New York Yankees to get outbid by any team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the one thing that I have with Hal is sometimes he just goes into these press conferences and says, "Yeah, we're gonna, we're not afraid to spend," and but like then nothing happens. But it seems like this time there may be more of a plan in case they do not get Juan Soto because they kind of said that their plan B is to pivot towards guys like Christian Walker, who I think should be a plan A with Juan Soto, but like plan B, like with Anthony Santander, even
P.
Alex
Alonso's
Bregman.
name.
What's up?
P. Alonso's been thrown around a little bit by
Yeah,
the Yankees organization as a maybe.
for me, I don't think I think Pete Alonso just gets entirely out of New York. I don't think he stays in New York entirely. I think he can go somewhere else and maybe get a payday.
You got a
I
team in mind, or just a general thing? He's
I
just
think
leaves New York.
for me, I kind of like Seattle. I kind of like Seattle.
Ooh. See, I like Seattle to sign Glaber.
Yeah,
Actually,
I could see that too. I think just for Seattle, they need more bats and they need quality bats.
they
Glaber
do.
could definitely be a name. He hit better in the second half, had good postseason success. Pete
Yeah.
Alonso, you're going to hit a lot of home runs. You know, you're probably in that type of ballpark, you're definitely going to get 30 plus out of Pete Alonso, in my opinion. Granted, he might bat 240 or 250, but I mean, the league average is around 250, 260. So, uh, is there anybody besides Juan Soto that you're really looking for the Yankees to acquire or trade for?
Um, I'm forgetting the names right now, but a couple. What? Ah, crap. I don't know. I feel like with football and the hockey and college football, I haven't really been keeping track with the MLB free agency, but just in general, I'd say, add some like middle bullpen arms. I feel like that, especially after, losing a lot of players, the middle bullpen becomes a little bit weaker. We're gonna have to replace Glaber somehow. Uh, you know, maybe that'll be some form of, Oswald Peraza. We play Cabrera at second every day. Maybe they don't
Ugh,
plan to.
ugh.
I'm just saying, maybe they don't plan to sign anyone new and just plan to use the farm system. I mean,
I like
mm,
Caleb Duran or Duran. I think that's what his name is. That young prospect. I really I like Oswaldo as a utility dude, but I don't like him starting. I,
I get the fear with him as an everyday. Um, like honestly, I feel like right now, as like the franchise, is that you could talk about the other offseason moves and you should have that plan, but everything's just based around Soto right now. If you don't get Soto, then you got to go out sign Santander, go out sign your second baseman. Then you got to use that money and disperse it instead of using that money into Soto. Granted, if you sign Soto, you should still be signing bullpen arms. Get some depth in the infield. What's even happening with Rizzo? Is he gone?
yeah, he
Yeah.
Rizzo is 100% gone. And I'll say this about Rizzo: I think for him, I think it's best for him just hanging up. He's had so many back
Yeah.
injuries. He's had what was it, a concussion when he played
Yeah,
against the
last year
Dodgers.
concussion.
I think for him, he's done enough. It sucks to go out like that on a game five, miscommunication with Garrett Cole and
Yeah, especially
all of
because as
that.
a career, he's such a great defensive first baseman.
Yeah, and he's won a World Series with the Cubs, so it's not like he
Iconic.
has to run and try and pull a Kevin Durant and go find a team to go win a World Series with. He's had a good career. I've liked Rizzo. Granted, I wanted Matt Olson over him, or wanted to sign
Well,
Freddie Freeman,
why
but
wouldn't you?
yeah, it's for me for free agency. Of course, if Soto does not sign, or if he does, I'd love to get Christian Walker. I know I think he's 32, 33, but he's not
Yeah.
going to get more than a 2 or 3 year deal. And I don't think it's more than 20
Mhm.
million a year or something like that. So
Mhm.
it's a good, very good deal.
Mhm.
And listen,
Oh, sorry. You finish. You finish what you're saying. I remembered one of the players that I had seen online.
is it a free agent?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead because I have a different type of plan.
Okay. I was gonna say that there have been reports that the Yankees are in serious talks with Walker Bueller.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
I don't know if you've seen that, but
yeah. I did see that.
yeah, that's
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't
neither would
mind it.
I. I mean, his best years, maybe he could pick it back up. I mean, he ended the World Series against us.
Yeah, and I don't think the Dodgers are gonna retain him. So
No,
mm,
they don't need to. And it's besides if they plan for Otani to also be in that rotation is was it they got Otani, Yamamoto, Flaherty, Kershaw, and a fifth I'm forgetting right now.
Bobby Miller, maybe.
Probably.
Probably
And they,
something. The Dodgers are going to sign someone. It don't matter.
yeah, like
They
come
got
on, and
billions of dollars.
Bueller is not like important them at all. They're trying to see if they can enter the Soto sweepstakes at this point. Just throw all
Spoiler
your
alert:
money.
Doughty's getting him, and if they do get him, the MLB is cooked.
If the Dodgers get Soto, what's even the point of playing the season?
Yeah, like if we're gonna talk about winning 116 games or like breaking the win record, that's a team. You look at it alone: Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Juan Soto, Will Smith. That alone, without even mentioning Otani yet, that's unbelievable. That's four of your hitters, and then you add Otani. Like,
You have now Soto's never won an MVP. Very close, basically an MVP caliber player. Your 1 through 4 could be a mix of Otani, Betts, Freeman, and Soto. That's if that ever happens, what's the point? What's the point of the season?
yeah, and then you even have guys like, in the bottom of the lineup that could still probably hit. I mean, Teoscar's a free agent.
Pray to God
It's
that they don't get him back.
Well, yeah, and also the Yankees said that if they don't get Juan Soto, that he's going to be a top pick, and I think I like that.
I do
But for
too.
for trades wise, I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if you're gonna like it. And listen, I love Luke Weaver, but I don't know how I feel about a long-term full season closer. So what I have the Yankees doing is trading for Ryan Hesley from the St. Louis Cardinals, getting a weapon arm there / Devin Williams, because I think if you get a solidified closer, because like sometimes people go into the closing role and they're just not built for being a closer. Cough, cough, Clay
At
Holmes.
Holmes.
So I'm not saying that could happen to Luke Weaver, because when he was a closer in the postseason, he was very comfortable, right? But then at times I felt that maybe he was a little fatigued. But when you're playing almost every day, all that, I think they should go out and trade for a guy like Devin Williams, who notoriously is a flamethrower / Ryan Hesley, because that's what the MLB is today. And that's why I don't think Nestor Cortez should be on the team either.
I mean, I totally get where you're coming from with the fact that you want to trade for a closer, but I just feel like my thought is, are we willing to give up what's necessary to get a guy like Devin Williams? Devin Williams is a highly regarded talent, I feel like, and he should be. Are we willing to give that up when, although Weaver might be a little unproven, he was very good when he took over the closer role from middle September to, whenever game 5 of the World Series was, every day, he was a very good player. And I feel like that is it smart then to, because you're going to have to give up prospects against Devin Williams, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be high level prospects, but it's going to be good ones. It's going to be quality prospects. It's not like that the Brewers are going to give Devin Williams for nothing. It's not like that we have to give up, Dominguez, but we're going to have to give up good talent. And I just don't know if I'm really ready to part with those bats. I'd be more willing to see like how Weaver plays into the season and then be ready to make a trade. You know what I mean?
true. I think if we're going to talk prospects, I don't think they trade Dominguez,
Nah.
but Spencer Jones, I think, should be a candidate to trade away for. I mean, he's got like a 30% strikeout rate in like Double A.
Yeah, like
So
I
I
don't think
think,
Spencer Jones is going to be an insane talent for this team. I'd be fine trading Spencer Jones away. I was fine trading Spencer Jones away at the deadline when I thought we were getting Flaherty. Um,
you would do Jones for Flaherty.
yeah, definitely. We needed at the time at least. It felt like that we really needed a starting pitching boost. I don't think that's. I really liked the Flaherty, especially since he was number 2 in Detroit. I mean, he didn't play that great in the postseason, so it's probably better that we didn't. I'm just getting a report also that the Jets are placing Rodgers on IR or will bench him over the next few weeks. So
Well,
just got that.
there was it wasn't really a mock trade, but the trade was basically in place that we would be sending Nestor Cortez for Flaherty. But the reason why it fell through was because of health concerns. When
Was that really 1-for-1 Nestor for Flaherty?
I'm pretty sure it was a trade like that. Like I don't think prospects or anything were involved because rental stuff like that.
Hmm.
Because personally, I wanted to do it. Now I know the postseason success for Flaherty may have not been as good, but like for me, it's not like I hate Nestor. I just for me, I'm a big flamethrower type guy. Like I need like that's why I love Luis Heel. Despite command could be sometimes off. We're in a game where it's getting faster. We're seeing relievers come in relief throwing 101, 102. Like these low end, like low velocity type guys usually get hit pretty hard. I don't really know a starter who throws not necessarily hard and kind of gets away with it. I don't know if there's a name that comes to mind for you that maybe would pop into my head, but I don't know a guy that throws maybe 91, 92 and necessarily gets away with it.
I mean, depends how you feel about him, but I mean, I throw out Yamamoto. That's the first name that comes to mind. Um, but no, you're right. You see, like, really, Greg Maddux was the last pitcher that was so great at not having to throw fast, just being able to locate so well. But like, I go back and forth with it because I feel like that the flamethrower, although it's beneficiary, MLB players today are so used to hitting 100 and 101. And I feel like that, I I love Heel. I love having him on the team. I think he's going to be fantastic. But the control issues, me personally, I can't stand it when a pitcher has control issues, which is why I love Luke Weaver so much. That changeup, he knows how to when you can locate a pitch like that well, you make Jose Ramirez, who in my opinion is a future Hall of Famer, look like a little boy. You make him look like he's
Little
swinging at
boy.
nothing, and he's the hitter. Jose Ramirez is, you know, you can argue him or Arenado, the third baseman of a generation, and Luke Weaver, who before this year was not, a great player. He's been bouncing around the league, the minors. He's 31. He's been bouncing around forever. Weaver learns how to locate that well of a changeup, and suddenly Ramirez can't touch it at all. It's incredible to watch,
Nobody on
really.
Cleveland could. Nobody on Cleveland could.
No one on Cleveland could, Even LA was having trouble with it. The only time I think he gave up any, not even earned his own earned runs, just runs in general in the LA series was when he went in, bases loaded, no outs, faced the top of the lineup, just gave up 2 sac flies because that LA
Yeah,
team still couldn't hit him.
yeah. The whole bullpen and everything is going to be interesting how it lays out. I mean, if there's one thing that I do respect from Brian Cashman is he finds the most random names and turns them into
Yeah.
good players. So that's why I'm not as worried. But I for me, like we were saying with the Rangers, like all in. Like when is this all in gonna happen? Was it the Juan Soto trade? Was that the all in mentality, or like I don't know. I feel like if they sign Juan Soto, obviously more moves need to be made. I'm pretty sure Juan Soto actually said that in the meeting to Hal, that Hal reported it to reporters that yes, Soto likes us, but he wants to see us improve in certain areas, which is 100% true. Aaron Judge has not talked to Juan Soto yet, and for me also, I feel like would you rather play with Aaron Judge or Francisco Lindor?
I think where Stowe's coming from, I mean, obviously, I'm incredibly biased towards it being a Yankee fan, but I'm going to say, Aaron Judge. The only reason I'm going to try to say, oh, it's not an entirely biased take is that Soto spent the entire year with Judge. I feel like that if Soto was a Met if the Mets traded for Soto last year for some reason and Soto was a Met the entire year and they have the same season they did, but Soto's a Met, I think he would re-sign with the Mets because I think that he would love playing with Lindor had he already played a full season with him. But I feel like that already having played a full season with Judge means he's more likely to want to play with him again. Because you saw that they had a great friendship. I felt like at least on the field, they got
Fans
along
love
well. Fans loved them.
roll calls were nice. Everything like that was you don't get that anywhere
Exactly.
else. There's no roll call in anywhere. Texas
Right.
tried to do it and they got flamed for it during the
Right.
World Series against Diamondbacks.
And I mean, that's nothing against Lindor. I think any player in my opinion, I feel like that any player for the Mets who's a free agent this year, how can you not want to keep playing for that team? The vibes are incredible. I expect more of the same. I think Lindor is a great locker room leader. I love him, but I just feel like you spent the year as a Yankee. You see Judge as your captain. Like, why not stick with that?
Yeah, and kind of the final thing to wrap it up. Is it possible to become the team to beat against LA? Like, are the Yankees, let's just say they do re sign Juan Soto, do they have the best chance to defeat the LA Dodgers? Or is there a team up and coming that you think, okay, they can make a few moves, few trades, and they could be the team to beat the LA Dodgers?
Do you mean coming out of the American League or just the league in
Yeah.
like the just the American League?
Yeah, for now, yeah. Let's do that, and then a team that could maybe beat the Dodgers.
So, if not the Yankees, I would say the Yankees most likely. I mean, I have hope in Baltimore. I've been a big Adley Rutschman supporter, but he didn't play great last year, so we'll see what happens. I still think the team could be Baltimore. If not us, if not Baltimore, then it's going to be Kansas City. Love Bobby Witt Jr. You can ask a couple people that I'm friends with. He was my dark horse MVP candidate going into the year. He proved me right. Had a career year. I love to see it. Royals got him at a bargain with that 11-year contract. Really, he has the swing mechanics of Mike Trout, the speed of a young Trout. He's an amazing defender. I feel like that the Royals can easily build like a great squad around him, but I still feel like that in the American League, if you win the American League, you're the team to beat until like we lose Soto. If we lose Soto, we're no longer a team to beat. That team becomes the Royals or the Orioles. But if we keep Soto, we're still a team to beat unless proven otherwise. At least in the American League.
So if there's a team not in the American League, in the NL, that could beat the Los Angeles Dodgers, who do you think?
I think it's the Padres. I thought that San Diego was going to beat them this year. They almost
So
did. They went up 2-0 against them. They gave the Dodgers the best run for their money. And even though Dodgers players are talking a lot of crap about the Yankees, about how
screw Joe Kelly.
yeah, about how we shit down our leg in the World Series, which, to be fair, that fifth inning, we did shit down our leg. But um, San Diego really like looking at their team. They traded away Soto, but they got Michael King in return. They got great pieces. I
Luis
feel like
Arias.
right, like they got Luis Arias. I feel like that team they don't even necessarily need to make like that many more moves. I think that that's a team that, as it is now, is ready to compete. And I think that I had talked about this with our mutual friend Michael Pauly Pruzan. I had talked with him going into the MLB postseason, saying that the Padres were my World Series pick. Um, I think that if they beat LA, as much as it pains me to say, I think they win the World Series if they win, game 3, 4, 5 of the NLDS against LA. I think they win it all. Um, it truly feels like, although they lost in the NLDS, that they were really one game away. And I think that team is going to be ready to compete this year. They were the best team in the MLB post deadline, not post deadline, post All Star break. Um, so I would say that like Dodgers obviously a team to beat. They're going to be the team to beat, but I think that especially being in their division, they're ready to face them. Padres are going to give them the best run for their money.
Any chance with the New York Mets?
You get Soto, anything's possible. They went on a great run last year. I don't think it's a run that could be replicated. But like I said, you get Soto, the team feels hot again. But again, I would put them if they got Soto. I would still say like in the NL East, could I really put them as the best team? I still would probably, the Phillies are still very good. The Braves are getting, they were injured to hell last year. They're getting most of their players back. Um, Even if they get Soto, it's tough to say like, oh, I could see them as the best team in the NL East. Even they might not, they might still be the third team in the NL East if they get Soto. So, but like I said, baseball is a great sport. Anything can happen. Teams catch fire any year. You get a talent like Soto, and you can win. There's a world that the Mets get Soto and win the National League, definitely, but I would still be more inclined to give that like National League threat to the Dodgers Padres, a team coming out of the NL West, really.
I think if the Mets snag Soto, I think they would overtake the Phillies in the NL East.
Okay. I
But to an extent, if they don't make any pitching moves, then I think it's a very tight race with the Phillies because
That's
I
what
look at
I'm
the
thinking.
Mets bullpen. They do need some pieces for sure. I mean, listen, Edwin Diaz is Edwin Diaz, but you need more than that. And I'm not saying
Um,
Edwin Diaz was that elite this year, but he's
I
still
also
like
think
good enough.
I also think that the Mets rotation is not going to be as good as they were last year. I think a lot of players had great years. I mean, we've seen Severino for years. I think last year is going to kind of be like, oh, he was fantastic last year, but I don't think he's going to be as good. I hope David Pearson keeps it up. I like him. We'll see. What's great for them though is that they get Senga back for the entire year. So we'll see with the Mets, especially if they get Soto though. They'll definitely be like the team to watch in the National League. I think. See how they do.
What if the Mets get Roki Sasaki? Is that his name?
Yeah.
What if they get
Um.
him?
If they get him and they get Soto, they're my pick then to dethrone the Dodgers. That's a starting rotation boost. He's been phenomenal in Japan. He's phenomenal in the World Baseball Classic. If they get both of them, how can you not say? I mean, then even then, I would have to say, you know, Mets are going to win the NL East. They could beat the Dodgers. I'd probably be on the hype train at that point.
Yeah, I think if the Mets get Soto and Roki, right now I have them projected to get Corbin Burns. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I could see them getting Burns. I know that right now Burns is just talking to a couple of different teams. No exact clear favor yet, but also I feel like that he wasn't great last year. I don't know if he could have that bounce back here. He was so great in Milwaukee. He wasn't great in Baltimore. If he has that bounce back year, then again, dangerous team. But I wouldn't really be interested to take a flyer on him. You also could see, the Mets maybe make a run for Blake Snell. Blake Snell, first half of the season, can he even play? It's incredible. Past 2 years, first half of the season, you're like, why is this guy a starting pitcher in the league? Second half of the year, you ask yourself, is there anyone better than him? It's it's crazy.
The problem with Blake Snell this year and Jordan Montgomery was Scott Boras took forever to get a deal done.
Yeah,
So when like it's very true when starters do not get when they do not get a full spring training, then they can be very, very bad.
yeah,
Like Severino with the Yankees, when he did have that lat strain in spring training, then he's
very bad.
awful. Then he's awful. And then he comes to the Mets, has a solid year. I don't know where he's going to go, to be totally
Yeah.
honest. But
Um, I just got a tweet. The reason why I got off camera a little bit, I just got a tweet. Mancini was called up because Zach Jones suffered an upper body injury.
okay, that would make sense. I thought honestly, if Mancini was to travel all the way up to Edmonton, obviously it's not for him to just to sit in the press box.
Yeah,
I thought it would just be, let's honestly get Jones out of the lineup. Not saying Jones was bad. I think Jones has been good. I think he's been good on the power play, all
yeah,
of that. But I like Mancini a lot. I think he's a young
yeah,
dude, young stud. I think he can be a good defenseman. But
yeah. I agree.
anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the New York Sports Pod. We're definitely going to do this again. A lot of fun talking.
One hundred
Went for a
percent.
while. Definitely got to get our update on the Jets, Giants at the end of the season, Rangers, all of that. And I'll see you guys in the next stream. Maybe it's another dual pod with Logan. We'll see. See you guys.